What's up, guys? Sekapoko here, bringing you another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. For this, we're going over my Penta maxed Franky showcase, and this is for Legend Franky. So, I was gonna put this out about 3-4 months ago, and I just actually got really bogged down with a lot of different things to do, a lot of videos to make, and all that stuff in between. But I just got the notification that he's going to be available on the global version, so I said, you know what, it might be time to actually make that video. Seeing as Franky is probably one of the most complicated legends in the entire game, and I'll be going over exactly how he works, and I'll be going over a lot of different stages and how you can see how powerful he is, and some of his drawbacks, because he does have drawbacks. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's go ahead and go over Franky as a unit. Franky is going to be a shooter and free spirit character that's going to have 5 sockets and 4 combo hits. Now his combo hits actually kind of change if you go into the general Franky version, so just know that there is a difference between the combo hits of your characters on your team if you're in Franky version and just the normal Franky versus in the general Franky. Max out at 4,378 HP, 1,616 attack, and 138 recovery. At max limit break and max candies, he's going to have 5,334 HP and 2,013 attack, which is absolutely freaking monstrous as far as stats goes. His recovery goes up to like 216, which like kind of balances him out a little bit, which is nice. Now, unfortunately, his limit break does not have the best abilities. It does have strength damage reduction, which is kind of nice. As content is going on JP right now, damage reduction is actually becoming more and more useful, so that's actually okay. It has anti-heal, which maxes out, I believe, at... anti-heal maxes out at 7 turns, which is starting to be very useful in the Japanese version. And it's going to have barrier penetration, which is the most annoying limit break to have. But what I have seen on Franky and a lot of other teams is that you're getting a lot lower HP and your HP reduced whenever I use him. Sometimes I don't have HP reduction, in which his barrier pen is kind of useful, and sometimes it's not, but it really just goes back and forth between barrier pen usefulness. Alright, so the next thing we're going to go over is his captain ability. His captain ability is a 3x rainbow booster for shooter, fighter, striker, slasher. Overall, it's really good to have a 3x booster. 3 times is great. 1.3 times HP, great. Oh, that's nice. It's not like top tier, but that's still very good overall. As a base ability, that's awesome. We have the Luffy Ace that has the base 3x booster. There's G4 that has a base 3x booster. A lot of characters have a base 3x booster built into their captain ability. So if you're thinking a 3x booster is bad, or if you're thinking it's underpowered, just think about his captain ability and what he can do when you pop his captain action. So, when you pop his captain action, he is going to, instead of boosting characters by a 3x multiplier, it's going to boost it to a 4x multiplier, putting him to a 12 times multiplier if you do a 3 times multiplier for another Franky, times the 4 times multiplier for the Franky when you pop the captain action. And yes, the captain actions do not stack, so you cannot pop one and they both get 4 times. That would be way too OP. That would actually put him in a god tier level of legend, and he is Franky, so I mean I wouldn't expect him to be that level. The other thing is that he's actually stronger than a lot of people think, which is really, really interesting. A 12x multiplier, by the way, is around a 3.4 multiplier, so that's actually a very, very strong ability to have on your kit. If you don't know, a 3.5 times a 3.5 multiplier is a 12.25 multiplier, so it's very close to a 3.5 times multiplier. Now, this is actually a much stronger captain ability than originally thought of, because if you do use a very fighter-heavy team, you're going to have a lot of damage. And most times when you're bringing teams, you actually don't bring a lot of shooters on Franky teams. You don't bring a lot of strikers, and sometimes you bring some slashers, which is fine. You kind of get just that neutral damage on them, so they're just going to have a 4x boost. But what's really interesting is if you bring a fighter on your team, every single fighter is going to get boosted to a 5 times multiplier, because they're going to get a 1.25 times boost times the 4 times boost times the 3 times boost to the Franky, which would put him at a total of 5 times 3, which is a total of a 15 times multiplier, which is close to like 3.9 multiplier. So that's actually a lot stronger than a lot of people realize when you're using a fighter team. And that's the reason he does not have both Frankies procced when you pop a single Franky, because otherwise he would be stronger than G4, he'd be stronger than V2 Dofi, every single legend in the entire game. When you pop his captain action, he would be way too strong. Now, the way you get around that is you actually manipulate the game a little bit by bringing a friend captain with a high multiplier. And on the Japanese version, you can get away with that with like G4, get away with Tesoro. There's a lot of other characters you can bring in order to get a lot of damage. So overall, Franky is an amazing unit. Definitely has some niche uses here and there, and definitely has a lot of really just power uses. I was actually able to use Franky to beat one of the hardest bits of content in the entire game with the Luffy Ace Zero Stamina Island. He was one of the teams I was able to use, and there are a lot of other sets of content where Franky actually just powers through the content like it's nothing. He's a very, very strong character, and probably my favorite character to use in the entire game. So the way he's going to work is really, really simple. Fighters, super strong single target. Slashers hit the front row, does normal damage to the first unit. And strikers are going to do AoE spread through the entire team at half damage. Shooters are going to do 0.75 times this initial target, and then 0.3 to everything else on the field. So the shooters actually get the most amount of damage out of this as far as the AoE spread. And my recommendation whenever using Franky, try to stay away from strikers and slashers as much as possible, because slashers don't really help you out as far as the captain ability goes, but you can bring them if you do need to. And shooters, they help with the AoE, because when you want to AoE a boss, and you AoE the adds as well, what you want to do is target the boss and do a lot of damage to the boss, and then hit the adds with lesser damage, which does happen a lot more often than you think. So just know that Franky isn't a really good character for those types of situations. Typically, you don't need more than 2 shooters on your team to clear an entire wave. The rest of your team can be full fighters, and you're actually able to do lots and lots of damage to that first target. So final closing thoughts and opinions on Franky. He's really, really good. Overall, he's amazing. I like that all the things he does. He's definitely not a god tier unit on my tier list. Definitely a really, really high rated on my tier list, but definitely not a god tier unit. And you can see why. I'll actually show in the first segment of this video exactly why I think he's not going to be a god tier unit and what some of his drawbacks here. Whereas other characters that are in the god tier do not have these types of drawbacks, and it's kind of annoying that he has this type of drawback. Overall, though, he is an amazing unit. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Very, very strong unit. And since he's still clearing content relatively easily now, he's got some cool stuff and cool mechanics. Overall, he is I'd say the second most difficult character to build for in the entire game, and that's why a lot of people like staying away from him, because of how difficult his teams are to build for, how difficult his kit is. But if you do like playing around with really, really complicated units, this is a very fun unit to play with. All right, guys, well, I'll see you in the showcase. Okay, so for the first thing we're going to be doing today, we're going to be running this story mode Fujitori, and what I'm going to show you here is exactly what happens when one of the negatives things we have with Franky. And Franky is a legend that does have some drawbacks, as I was saying. And you can see here we're actually doing reduced damage with our attacks and not barely doing any damage with the damage reduction on the Fujitori, but doing about 216,000 damage. And then we're going to hit about 1 million right here. But one of the things that Franky has that no other legend in the entire game has is that he's actually going to lose his captain ability entirely if a character is blown away. Now, there are characters. I've tested this with V2 Dofi, I've tested this with a character like Judge, but no character in the entire game loses their captain ability except for Franky if you have a character blown away, which is super weird to me. Like, I don't understand that at all. Like, if characters are blown away, why you lose your captain ability. So here we're going to auto attack. You can see we're not able to, if a character is blown away, we are not able to use our captain action. I believe bind may affect it as well. There are a lot of negatives here. So you can see here we're doing almost 0 damage here. That's with the attack down. And if I lose the attack down, just to show you that with the attack down gone, that it's not actually the attack down, we're going to auto attack again, and see you can do almost no damage whatsoever with the captain ability gone. The attack down was a factor, but you can see the damage is significantly reduced. And the damage cap, by the way, on this Fujitori is about 100,000, so you'll know that it's definitely a reduced damage. Overall, that's my least favorite thing about Franky, and it definitely shows off one of his major weaknesses. So if you ever have a character that is blown away, it is a problem. You can see here we're just doing damage normally, and pop the special ability and everything, we're doing tons more damage, but even with the damage cap, only 500,000, and then with the character blown away, almost nothing. So let's go over my team composition for the Whitebeard Forest. And what I'm going to be bringing here is going to be a type booster, which is going to be the G4 or the Franky. They're both going to be 2x type boosters. Nami for the color affinity as well as orb boost, 2x orb boost and 1.75 color affinity. We have Sabo for tap timing bonus or additional damage bonus. And we have Moria for an int unit that is also a fighter that also gets 3x chain lock. Nice. And then we have Carrot, who is a Psy unit, which is nice. And he's going to give us full matching orbs as well as defense down conditional. And we have the Vanderdeck to proc the Carrot conditional. Overall, this is actually a very, very strong team in getting every possible boost in the entire game. So the first thing we're going to do here on this run is we're going to show off on Ezo how the captain action actually works. You'll see that when we're attacking with a fighter, we're only be attacking a single target unit. And if we attack with a striker, it will attack everybody and reduce the damage that we're dealing by 50% so that you get a wave clear kite mechanic. And if you hit with a shooter, 70% of the damage will be done on the main target, while 30% will be translated to every other unit. You can see here I'm trying to hit greats and hitting the meat orbs here, and we're still hitting greats all the way through. And by hitting greats every single time, we're still able to clear everything on the room except for one of the units. So that's actually really, really strong. On a side note, this is actually kind of an interesting thing. I just found this out on this run. If you use a G4 special ability and then get out of the G4, you actually don't use any of the gear charges because you have an auto attack if you wave clear with that character. So that's actually kind of cool. By the way, I have on previous runs cleared that entire room with a Franky and Nami with no specials pop, just using the G4 and Franky captain actions, and it actually clears the entire room, which is actually really, really strong. One of the things that was kind of good about this team is that we're going to actually, as a final note, just know that if you do want to bring Franky captain action into a room, it is affected by preemptives. Now we're going into the burst turn where we're going to be going our burst on this entire room. And we're actually kind of messed up here. And the reason I messed up is this is just like my actual mess up. But it actually shows kind of the cool thing that you're able to do with strikers on this team, which is really interesting. Now, note that when you're attacking with an AoE type unit here, you're actually going to get reduced damage on certain hits and an increased damage on other hits based off your color affinity. So like, if you're running Dex, if you're hitting a Dex unit versus a quick unit, then it's going to do AoE. It's going to change the damage that way, etc. So this is just me messing up my order, and I actually do a really funny thing where I attack with Nami, but it does a surprising amount of damage. So that part is really, really interesting, meaning how much damage we actually did. And it was just because I put my units in the wrong spot. And that's what happened. But basically what we're going to do here is we're going to hit one perfect with a good with the Franky and then go into the G4. And I actually messed up and I hit the perfect with the G4. I hit the perfect G4, but then I didn't go to, I was supposed to go to the Carrot next, and I just messed up and clicked the Nami. And with striker damage here, the damage is actually massive. I was very, very surprised. Pleasantly so as well. Again, I have to hit a good here. We're going to hit a good and then switch targets to him as quick as we can. Or to anybody. So if we hit it, we hit good and then we hit this guy. That might actually be the easiest, and then hit perfects all the way through. All right, so here we go. Attempt number 4. $64 million.
$64 million.
For the rest of this, I'm just clearing out the rest of the Whitebeard Forest. You can see the damage in the team is still significant. With you popping the Tankman special, just with the Franky, it does more than enough damage to clear the rest of this. And the team overall is extremely strong. There are holes in the team, as you can see, but overall it does work out pretty well. And for the final set of content we have here, it's going to be a run that I was doing against the Coliseum Neptune with a Franky and Katakuri team. And the nice thing about this Coliseum is that it actually shows off some of the things that Franky is able to do, even with not able to use his kit to the full potential. And what's really interesting about this team is that it does allow you to use some really weird compositions. You can see this team. I would never have thought in a million years to use this composition before like looking up and Googling exactly what best units for this characters are. And what's really interesting is that I was looking for a Psy fighter that reduced special cooldown, so that it would also like lower the cooldown on the top row. And I was like, oh, Psy 5+ Robin does that. That's amazing. And that allowed me to use every single ability when going into the final room, which is really cool. And then for Hina, Hina actually works with a quick captain too. So I was like, oh, Hina works on Franky teams too, so that's nice. And there are some compositions that you can run with Franky and V2 Aokiji. And what's really nice is a lot of things that are in the V2 Aokiji batch work well on Franky teams, and they are fighters. So just know that you do have some interesting things that you can run there. And now that we're going into the final room here with Katakuri and Franky, we have basically, like as I said, Robin here for cooldown reduction, Hina for color affinity, and we don't actually have Katakuri getting his special up because I couldn't figure out a way to get the special his delay conditional up, but I figured I would use him for orb manipulate because he would be a really great character to use for that. And Franky gets rid of all my block orbs as well as bomb orbs, so I don't have to worry about it, and I can get full matching with Katakuri because I have tandem meat already matching, and then I'll just have colored orbs out there. So Franky and Katakuri kind of pair well together for that kind of deal. And I was trying to calculate this on the damage calculator and figure out exactly how much damage I would do when bursting on this turn, and I was hoping I would do enough damage, and it was like super close on the damage calculator to actually be able to one-turn this. And one of the things that's really interesting about this, and I did go over this in my Coliseum Neptune video, and the reason that's in this showcase is that if you hit a perfect on a character that is a shooter or a striker, it will also proc the barriers on the other units. So if you're hitting a perfect on one unit, then it will actually proc the perfect on every single unit in the entire room if you're hitting with a shooter or a striker unit. On a slasher, it'll just be for that front row, so you'll just be able to hit that front row with that type of deal. But here we can see we're just attacking with with the Franky here, and we are able to clear the entire room with the Katakuri as well as the Franky, and then get our chain boost up, and then we start hitting with these side fighters, and we get some massive damage, dealing over 7.7 million damage in this room. Alright guys, well my name is Sekapoko. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure you smack that like button down below as well as the subscribe button down below so we get lots of support in the channel and of course keep the channel growing. If you guys do want to get notifications on all my videos, make sure you guys hit the bell notification right next to it so you guys get notifications every time I drop a video. If you want to check out the last couple videos, they're right over there, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.